iPadOS 16. It's disappointing. I have been getting accustomed to iPadOS 16 since now the betas are stable enough where I've installed it on my main iPad. They didn't do much to this at all. So you can see here, I've got the recording going so I don't have to keep holding my iPad up so you can see it. So you can see I'm at my home screen, and this is iPadOS 16. You probably couldn't tell. I do have an iPad running 15 here, and I will show this one off more once it is applicable. So far, not much has changed. Now you can see right off the bat we have a weather app. This app, I will say, looks pretty good. It looks very similar to the app that we see on iPhones, but my question is, why couldn't they bring this app when iPadOS 15 released? Because we got the redesign of the weather app, why couldn't they just bring it over to the iPad beforehand? It would have made it so iPads like this one that's stuck on 15, could get the weather app. I don't understand. Now, other than that, that's one of the only notable features that iPadOS 16 brings to the table is the weather app. Stage Manager is obviously a thing, but I can't demonstrate that to you because that only works on M1 iPads for whatever reason. Now you can see here's what the lock screen looks like. They did change a little bit. You can see that we have the new clock design and we have the new date and time thing, obviously. That looks exactly like it does on iOS 16. However, you can't change anything. On iOS 16, you can change the font, and you can change what the date is on the top. You can put the weather information up there if you want to. You can put little widgets below it. You can't even do that here. So you can see notifications look like this. They didn't change it at all from how it is on iOS 16. iOS 16, it puts a little thing on the bottom saying how many notifications you have, and you scroll up from the bottom to access them, and they all appear just on the bottom. iPad is exactly how it is on iPadOS 15. They changed literally nothing except for the clock and the date. That's all they changed. That's not significant enough to warrant a whole OS upgrade, making the clock bigger. Now the control center is unchanged. That's how it is on iOS as well. And one thing that they also didn't change, just to show how little they changed the lock screen, is turning on a focus. Let's turn on Do Not Disturb, for instance. You can see it shows the Do Not Disturb symbol there. Now you might think that's not so weird. On iOS 16, it doesn't show it there anymore. It shows on the bottom, roughly where the press home to open text is. iPads just don't have it like that for some reason. It still uses the old lock screen design, which is silly to me. Why would you do that?
Now, I forgot to bring this up in the main video, and it's something that I did actually want to bring up that I just forgot to talk about, is that the lock screen on iOS 16 also added a new feature where you can see the full cover art of any music that you're playing. Now, of course, iPadOS didn't get this. It only got the small view that we had in iOS 15, further proving that they didn't really change that much between iPadOS 16 and 15. This makes me believe that they actually only changed a small bit of the lock screen UI, and they didn't actually overhaul the lock screen like they did with iOS 16. Even though the clock is a little different, I think they just patched that in there and left the lock screen otherwise unchanged, which I'm not very happy about. But anyways, back to the main video.
There are a few other changes, like in iMessage, where you can undo send messages, you can edit messages. That I think is fine. I'm glad that they brought all that stuff over to the iPad. But it honestly just feels like such a minor upgrade, and they could have pushed iPad way further. Let's look at the clock again. Now, I obviously just brought this up, but they could have at least made it so you could change the text color and the text font of the clock. And there's proof of this too. Earlier versions of iPadOS 16, like the earlier betas, they had a feature where, well, it was more like a glitch, but where you could open Siri shortcuts and open an app. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but I think it's called Poster Board or something, and it would let you change your lock screen. Now, widgets were totally broken. You could set them, they wouldn't show up, but the clock, you could change the color of, and you could change the font, and that worked perfectly fine. Why they didn't bring that to iPadOS 16, I don't know. They just removed the exploit in the later build of the betas, and then they reverted the clock back not too long after. Now, let me grab my iPad Air 2. Now, this iPad here is still running iPadOS 15. It's honestly really not that different. So here is my iPad Air 2's lock screen, and you can see the clock is the thin font that we see in earlier versions, but the notifications look exactly the same, and there's basically no difference. The home screen as the home screen is exactly the same as it was before, and you can even see you've got the app library, which was introduced in iPadOS 15 and really didn't change much. Now, obviously, you don't have the weather app like iPadOS 16 does since they brought that in, but yeah, iPadOS 15 looks indistinguishable to me from iPadOS 15. If I looked at these home screens side by side, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference besides there being a weather app on the home screen of this one. That's literally all I can see. There's nearly no difference. iPadOS 16 literally didn't change. Like I said, they did a little bit of tweaking here and there, but it otherwise didn't change at all. And you can see here, if I go to like the settings app, for instance, and let's see here. Yeah, like this looks, I personally think iPadOS 16 could have been so much more. So personally, I'm not a huge fan of iPadOS 16. They could have brought a lot to the table that iPads just don't get. It just baffles me how slow the iPad is when it comes to getting new features. Obviously, like I said at the beginning of the video, we got Stage Manager, which is cool if your iPad supports it. Unfortunately, mine doesn't, although it should be powerful enough to run it, honestly. It bums me out a lot that iPads are behind when it comes to the new features and stuff that iOS gets. And what's unfortunate about that too is that it happened not that long ago as well with iPadOS 14. Remember when the app library came out with iOS 14? Well, the iPad didn't get it until iPadOS 15, and I'm worried that we're going to see that again. We're going to get customizable lock screens and all these new features in iPadOS 17, and maybe that won't happen. Maybe I'm wrong. I really just don't understand why Apple would add stuff to the iPhone and then not bring it to iPad. If Apple's really pushing iPad to be like a big thing, they should really give features and stuff that iPhones have. If you've got an iPad, in my opinion at least, and it's running iPadOS 15, let's say you've got an Air 2 or a Mini 4. Either of those both lost support with iPadOS 16. They both run 15. Don't get a new iPad. iPadOS 16 brings nearly nothing new to the table. It's mostly visual, and even then, they didn't do an amazing job with it. Again, the weather app is pretty good, and the messages app getting the undo send feature, it's totally pointless just to go out and buy a new iPad just for those little features. I know there are more than that. I'm sure that there are a little bit more features and stuff that these older iPads, not this one, I'd bet that maybe in the future we'll see more features come to these iPads, especially hopefully this 8th gen. But yeah, tell me in the comments what you guys think of iPadOS 16, because personally, I'm not such a big fan of it. Yes, I know this is a talking head video, so if you made it this far, I'm glad you did. If you liked it, then hit the like button. Get subscribed if you like the content that you see on this channel. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye.